if you heed the right set of instructions, your life can completely change. Not only yours, but generations to come. A title that we really wanted to just unpack is called Knowledge versus Wisdom. The masses, they often get these two words confused.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. Thank you for joining us. Mike, get him.
Yes, sir. So, the fellas and us, we're talking, we're having conversations, and a title that we really wanted to just unpack is called Knowledge versus Wisdom. And the masses, they often get these two words confused because you can have information and not come from a wise place. Or let's say the information actually makes sense, but you haven't been in enough situations to understand that, like when we talk about our job, let's say when we're working at the plant supervising the union, you got a blueprint, this is your daily schedule. You don't know that they're gonna, they basically gonna tell you like, I'm not writing, I'm not doing it. You have to be able to react and move accordingly. So in the verse that we were kind of ruminating on was Proverbs 4. And it starts by saying, listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. So to me, before we even go any further, I think we need to really just kind of connect the dots on what does that mean from our different positions in life, because we're all in different positions of life, age-wise. We come from a little bit different generations. We all grew up a little bit differently. So I'll kick it off from my perspective. The first thing I think about when I hear that is you have to be in a state to receive wisdom. We're saying, listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Now, to me, I don't necessarily know if that means biological. I would dare to say it doesn't. Anyone that's a wise elder that's speaking to you as a son, like in a loving environment and trying to like, listen, bro, I'm trying to show you something so you don't have to go through the pain that I went through. Yeah. Because I've had OGs sit me down and say, listen, bro, you don't want to keep doing that. Because if you go down this path, this is where it's going to end up. And it may cost me my life, but I want to try to save yours if you'll take the breadcrumbs. Because the thing is we always have a choice. So going back to that, we have to put ourselves in a position to receive information. It's funny because I have 4 sons, as you all know, because I know you've been watching. And I go through these conversations a lot with my oldest son specifically. And I always tell him, like, listen, I love you. Like, I'm telling you something from a position of love. The very least, just listen. That's all. Listen, allow it, to penetrate your spirit. And if you still feel like you got to go do something else, by all means, I'm going to always ride with you. But don't disregard a father's intentions for even giving you this, because some people don't have that. When I was young, I didn't always have that.
And I think you said something I want to make sure people clear too. You talked about it from a father's perspective, but you also said from a loving perspective. So someone coming from a loving perspective to pour into somebody some wisdom that they've gone through. So it could be your mother, it could be anybody, but they're coming in with that loving mindset. So, and I think it's important. So, hey, go ahead. I just want to make sure to clarify that.
I think, one word, the word that stood out to me inside of that verse was the word understanding. And understanding is essentially, you don't just, because look, like he was just saying, like we're differentiating these terms here. There's knowledge, there's wisdom, there's understanding. These are different things. Understanding means that you have knowledge, right? But now you can make it contextual. you actually can, you actually have the means to actually turn this thing into wisdom. If you just have the information, it just is what it is. Like, for example, I remember, like, I've been taught the word, like I've gone to church, right? Mm-hmm. You hear a message, and then it might say something like, oh, you can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth you. You've got it, right? The knowledge had just got planted. It's right here. Mm-hmm. Cool. Can you use that today? Mm-hmm. If you just have that verse alone, do you know how to actually use that? Mm-hmm. Can you put it in the context of why it was put there inside of the Bible?
Yeah.
You don't. You just have the knowledge of it. But then when you start reading the verses that came before it, about how he was actually operating, when he talks about be anxious about nothing, but in everything by prayer and stuff, when you put it all into context, you're like, oh, okay, this is why I can do all things through Christ. Because of X, Y, and Z, I have understanding now. Mm-hmm. And then we translate that to wisdom when I say, okay, not only do I know what you talk about, but I understand how to actually use this thing, so I'm going to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, and I guess as you say that, it's like, because that knowledge piece, there's people that know the Bible inside and out. I mean, they can spit scriptures all day long, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And so they have the knowledge of the Bible, but to the point you just brought up, you're talking about, they don't have the understanding on how it fits in their life. They don't have the understanding. And that wisdom, to me, is that key that unlocks the true understanding of how it applies to you.
You can't get the result of the word until you actually translate it into wisdom. You have to use it.
You're right. It don't sit with you. Yeah, it don't mean nothing to you at that point.
Yeah, so it's funny. And this is something else where we think often like we have these free-flowing conversations because we all studying the same playbook. Mm-hmm. It's like any basketball team or football team. You see them move. If your defense is moving in unison, and anybody in the stands is like, man, they look like they're organized, they're effective, mm-hmm. they have repetition. That's a good team. Mm-hmm. But it's because we are studying the same playbook. And the reason why I wanted to interject really quick is because, so we keep saying this word, understanding, and it took me down to verse 7, where it says, the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it costs all you have, get understanding. Mm-hmm. And I think we were talking about this before the cameras came on, but in some situations where it's certain actions that you can take in life that, you can't bounce back from, or you can't bounce back from completely.
Yeah.
Like we were mentoring young men today, and one of them asked a question about the girlfriends, and they saw another girl, and we had to kind of go down that road within reason, because age appropriate, but we had to let them understand what the end goal is. Mm-hmm. When you get to the point and you have a wife and you choose your wife, you're in a covenant with that wife. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, these kids are a lot younger, so, we're bringing it back. But we also let them know, but you got to be careful because, you can have a girlfriend and decide that's not the one. You can have another girlfriend, that's your prerogative as long as you're not breaking mm-hmm. nobody's heart. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, certain things have consequences. Yeah. So be careful. Like you don't want to just necessarily have a girlfriend and you doing some things you ain't supposed to and she gets pregnant. Because now, even though you like, man, this ain't the one. Now you got different consequences. Yeah. It costs you something. Mm-hmm. It costs you something. It costs you a lot, matter of fact.
Yeah.
It's in multiple ways.
They do, for a long time.
For a long time. And so these are the things that, something like this, I would just go back on and just like, man, it costs all you have. Though it costs all you have, get understanding. Mm-hmm. Understand, have these conversations, study, go down different scenarios.
Because it's worth it.
It is.
It's worth it, yeah. It's pre-development. Like in real estate, we call it pre-development. Before we ever put a shovel in the ground, we have months of pre-development. We're not going to spend any critical dollars actually moving or designing in the field, what we call it, without doing all of our due diligence. Mm-hmm. And that involves analyzing all scenarios, not just the good scenarios. You got to go through the bad. Worst case scenario, where we at? Partners, how we feel about this? What if everything is upside down? You invested X amount. Are we together still, or are we pointing at each other? Man, you sunk our ship. Are we having division? You have to have some pre-development analysis. Yeah. And that goes out on real estate, that goes in life, just period.
Now he said it, but I want to make sure you didn't miss it. Okay? The question is, why is it going to cost all that you have? Why? Why will it cost all that you have to get this understanding? And I believe the answer to that is, so we already talked about the difference between the three terms that we just had. The knowledge is very important, but it's just fluff if you don't do anything with it. The reason that it costs everything is because when you first have that knowledge, it's great. You have the starting point to actually start moving. When you start moving, you start to gain this understanding. We talked about it before. A guy, if Mike is at level 10, he cannot give you level 20 information. He doesn't have he can read a book about level 20. Yeah. He can go talk to somebody who might have been at level 20 at some point, and he can tell you what they told him, or he can tell you what he read from that book. But essentially, he does not have the understanding of being at level 20. There's a difference. And so in the process of getting there, going from 10 to 20, he's going to learn some things. Mm-hmm. He's going to knock his head a few times. He's going to, get a little wobbly. He's going to get back up. He's going to keep moving. But when he gets to level 20, he will have developed the understanding of going from 10 to 20. It costs everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, and I like the way you kind of put that, because people they don't want to go through that stage where you're going to bump your head, or you're going to run into this or run into that. And it's not always painful, don't get me wrong. And when you started, the father was trying to pour into the son to kind of prevent the son from having the pain, right? Yeah. But still, that cost. There is a cost. There's unknown. That I know, it is a cost.
It's definitely a cost. And so I do have a theory on this that I do want to, I think is worth saying. I think specifically our community, the Black community, we struggle in this area. We struggle in this area because there's been so much opposition in our history with, our lineage interrupted. We don't fully understand that we come from kings and queens. Mm-hmm. The thing that was, more prevalent is, the slave trade. We hear about it. We understand the ramifications. After the slave trade, it came segregation, Jim Crow era. Like, we still haven't fully recovered and got on stable ground. And because of this, our elders, a lot of times, they may have only got to level 8. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We at 15, we have aspirations of going to level 25. Mm-hmm. Our elders, they're giving us wisdom, but a lot of times we're our own enemies too. We're Granny don't know what she's on. She was scraping hand them all, even though, she may not have had all the fancy business terms that, we educated folks have. We've been this degree and that, but they have wisdom. And this is where a lot of us, I've made this mistake too, in our youthful days, we take for granted because all our life, because of the blood, sweat, and tears they put out, we was able to go to college. Exactly. We were able to get these opportunities because of them. And then somehow we put on the smart guy hat. We felt like we smarter than the elders. Yeah. Because we have all the fancy terms and degrees. And this is where it really is a trick of the enemy, because it's like further causes that disconnection with our family. Somewhat with the kids earlier, they was talking about we don't know our family. We don't kick it with our family.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying, man, we miss out. You can miss out on wisdom because of pride, because of arrogance or whatever, because we think because they're older, they don't know what I'm going through. So we overlook opportunities to gain wisdom.
Yeah, and real, just to finish that. So, however, let's say other ethnicities where, they didn't have all that interruption in their lineage.
No.
So their grandfather was able to start a collision business and it's grown into a multi-million-dollar firm. Or their grandfather was able to have a multi-million-dollar portfolio and then it passed down to their father. So by the time it gets to them and their grandfather says, listen, you need to listen to this. I'm looking at your dealership and your Ferrari. I said, well, I'm going to listen to Grandpa. Grandpa might know a little something, you know. And this is the, you have to be very careful because I'm not, you know, we believe in financial freedom. You know, I'm not even going to say literacy. We believe in financial freedom because that's going to allow us to be good shepherds and pour back and impact our community. Not just for us to just dive in our riches like Scrooge McDuck. You know what I'm saying? I might be dating myself on that.
You are.
Yeah, but you know, that's what Scrooge, it's not that. We believe in because we want to be good shepherds and pour back. But if we're looking at Granny who, you know, because of her sacrifice, she raised 20 kids, maybe 3 of them was hers, and she was doing it. She may not have reached the financial worldly success that we put on a pedestal in this day and age. And then you see, you know, our other brothers in the other ethnicity, their grandfather has a dealership and he's driving a Ferrari and a Rolls Royce. And we're like, oh, let's go listen to what he's talking about because I'm looking at his worldly possessions. We're not factoring in all of the history and the process that it took to get there.
Yep.
So it's just a reminder just for all of us to just really be careful. Go back to that word, Proverbs 4.
I want to circle back a little bit to what you said about you got the great grandfather, and then you got the father, you got the son. The great grandfather, he done hit level 55, and he told his son, hey, this is how you get to level 55, right?
Yeah.
So the son, which is the father of the other dude, he went ahead and developed his whole thing, and so the son can see this. I go back to King Solomon when the Queen of Sheba came to his palace. She went to get his wisdom, see his whole operation. The one thing that stood out to me was the fact that it said that she could see his wisdom. I had to stop. I had to pause in the verse. I had to figure out what that meant. Well, why? How could she see? What are you talking about? It's like it's in your head, right? No. She could see his wisdom because it also outlines how his servants were happy. They were all successful. Of everybody who was working, they knew exactly what they were doing, and they were doing it, and the thing was growing and developing right there live. You could see everybody in their place, operating in their gifts and leading where they were supposed to be leading. She could see his wisdom when she saw it, and it was like, I'm talking about the grandfather who hit level 55. There were certain things that you're gonna be able to see with that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we're talking about the difference between, you know, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Once you get to wisdom, it's the level where now you're making the right decisions consistently because you're not just trying to figure it out anymore, right? You had the knowledge, you developed the understanding after you started doing it, but now you're at the point of wisdom because it's like, now it wouldn't make sense to do something else because I know the right way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, essentially what we're saying, you got the cheat code. Let's call it what it is. Like, I mean, some people are born on third base. So when you hit a home run, or when you come into home plate, you slide your little butt in. It's not the same as somebody they had to fight to just get inside the park. Then they had to fight to get on the team, and they the 14th player in the dugout, and then they got to fight to just get an opportunity. And the reality is, newsflash, I mean, you know, spoiler alert, we're not all born in the same situation.
No, we're not.
You know what I'm saying?
But that goes back to your point about as black people, slavery and how that impacted that whole, that access to knowledge. You know what I'm saying? And that access, the great-grandfather being at 55, now, whereas my great-grandfather was probably at 10. You know, so the wisdom that he could convey was wisdom, but it wasn't wisdom per se. It wasn't 55 wisdom. Yeah, because he hadn't been exposed to that. He hadn't had the opportunity to be exposed to it.
Just to clarify though, but see, what we're talking about, because it's different types of wisdom. Yeah. And we talk about this on the money episode. Yeah. But we all, I know, are firm believers that to be honest, a lot of the wisdom that our elders gave us was far more valuable than somebody with worldly riches.
Yeah, it's about life.
It is 100%. However, there is, like I said, we firmly believe in financial freedom. Mm-hmm. So let's not get that twisted because that allows us to do more of God's work uninterrupted. Yeah. We have to have time to study the scripture. We have to have, just being honest, it's the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. If we weren't at a point in our lives, work-wise, where we were tied to an hourly wage, we wouldn't even be able to just stop and say, you know what, we got a podcast, we're going to podcast for 2.5 hours because that's important for us to give jewels back to all of our people. Exactly. Because we would be tied to an hourly position and we couldn't enforce it, just being honest.
You wouldn't have the flexibility to do it. And each one of, don't get me wrong, we make time to do this. But to the point you bring it up, and I guess what was in my head too is that when we talk about wisdom and we talk about what nuggets people are giving us, it depends on what lane we're in, right? Like my dad can tell me about life and, like living life. And as a black man, hey, you know what? There's certain things we ain't supposed to do, how we're supposed to carry ourselves. Otherwise, we can get ourselves twisted up real bad. Mm-hmm. Now, if we talk about the business world, my dad has never been exposed to certain things in the business world. So he might be able to give me principles on how you carry yourself and how you deal with other people and how you read people, but he's not able to give me that information on how to close a deal or how to deal with someone who might be trying to short you or how to, evaluate a contract. You know what I'm saying?
That cheat sheet we was talking about.
Yeah, the cheat sheet.
We ain't get past that cheat sheet.
Nah, so I think we have to understand, kind of what we're seeking from one and where we're seeking it. And then also who giving it to us, because because my man on the corner, he might be able to tell me about, hey man, and give me the layout of the neighborhood, but I ain't gonna trust him to tell me about what woman I need to be with. You know what I'm saying?
You might see somebody who has a bunch, like they got a Lamborghini outside, they got the $700,000 watch, they got X, Y, and Z going on. It's like, yeah, they might be wise in one area. That don't mean they got a healthy relationship.
No.
That don't mean they know how to raise a kid.
They could be totally unwise in other areas.
They could be a straight up fool.
To be honest, a lot of times it's more likely that they are unbalanced. To be honest, I think now that the data is really coming out you really study like previous generations of businessmen or just men, period. We just talk about, men and women, but we gonna speak on, we gonna say humans. Yeah. The human experience, a lot of people that they distributed a lot of their time and emphasis on the finances. They lacked in other areas. Yeah. One of the most apparent areas is usually family suffers. Yeah. Because they spend so much time at work, work trips, work calls, and you look up, you miss your kids being raised. You wake up and your kid don't want to deal with you. And
I just want to do a time check here real quick. So I know, guys, we're enjoying this conversation, but we're getting to that point too. How can we kind of throw a bow on this in a way where it's meaningful? As Martell always said, people always remember the last 5 minutes.
When you're seeking out like wise counsel, you gotta really pay attention to what that person is actually wise in. It's like you might come to this person for some advice on business, and they might have a ginormous business, but don't also ask them about their relationship. They done got divorced 5 times. Come on.
Or ask them, hey, what did you do wrong? Where can I make an adjustment? When you went left, where can I go right?
Yeah.
Bingo. So to wrap this conversation up, knowledge versus wisdom. Some jewels that you feel like they should leave with.
You know what? So I want to do a little different for this one. I want to, my parting words, I want to go back to the word, and I want to just do a call to action, because I really want to invite people to just really, we had a few different scriptures we were kind of throwing out, but I'm like, really, we could just unpack Proverbs 4. It's so meaty. Yeah. So skipping around a little bit, verse 10, listen, my son, accept what I say, and the years of your life will be many. And then skipping ahead to verse 13. Hold on to instruction. Do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. So I really want people to just go back to Proverbs 4 and just kind of just spend some time with it and just kind of, read it, ruminate on it, ask questions, talk to your friends. You can put some questions in the comments. We might chime in, But it's really one of those things. It's kind of just jumping out at me because going back to 13, it says, hold on to instruction. Do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. Mm-hmm. It really is, man, because if you heed the right set of instructions, your life can completely change. Not only yours, but generations to come. Like, for example, we're living in this. We're all entrepreneurs. We're all changing. Well, we're adding to our lineage. Our kids, we're all going to make our stamp in this world and just make a difference. And it's because we submit and we heed wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's really where it starts.
Yeah.
We ain't topping the word of God at all. Go do that. just go back, go do that. And I as much as I don't want to muddy it at all, it's just like in Proverbs, in the very first chapter, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. If you don't have that, you can't understand that.
There you go.
Please remember that.
Because actually, wisdom comes from God.
Exactly. Yeah. You gotta get the source. You gotta understand that you get it from the source. So just disclaimer. Now read it, okay?
Yeah.
There you go.
Cool. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Save for Tomorrow podcast. I'm serious. Hey, put it in the comments. If you feel like you got some thoughts, some questions, whatever, throw it into the comments. I would love to have a conversation about it. But before we wrap this thing up completely, you got a nice hoodie on.
Iron sharpens iron. Another Proverb, 27:17. But it's submerged. We have some other taglines. Come check us out on IG at DetroitInvestor_WCI.
Hey, come check out Man 2.0 every second Saturday of the month, 10 to 12 at 28202 Franklin Road in Southfield, Michigan. We have it at the Freedom Center. Come check out and find out what real men look like based on what God's design is.
And I think this is a perfect opportunity. When you about to read that verse, I know it. I know because you heard him say it, and so I know you're getting your Bible out right now. Now, 1 second. If you've gotten your Bible out and you've ever thought, man, I want to read the Bible more. I want to gain that understanding. But when I read this, it's gibberish. Like I feel like Shakespeare is trying to talk to me, and I do not know what he is saying. Right? If that's you right now, I want you to know we just made something. Okay, it's going to bless your life today. Mm-hmm. It's called How to Read and Study the Bible. It's a free resource, completely free. Mm-hmm. Information is going to be below. Go ahead and press that link. But I'm going to walk you through step by step how we read, how we study the Bible, the translations. What do they mean? Okay, should I be reading the Old Testament, New Testament? Okay, this was it written in English or I think it was in Hebrew, Greek? We're going to break down all of that exactly how you can understand exactly what he just said. Everything in that verse. I want you to dig all of the wisdom out of it. Okay, I'm going to give you that free resource. Go ahead into the description of this video so that you can get it. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Stay for Tomorrow podcast. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not already, and we hope to see you next week.
Peace.